This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about. Real, honest, entertaining, live. DBL starts right now.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Daily Blast Live. Hello, everyone. It's Monday, June 15th. I'm Tori, all by myself in the studio. But Jeff and Al thankfully join us. No one even smiled when I did that. We good? Everyone okay? How's everybody doing?
We're happy. Good.
Good. Jeff, you doing good?
I feel good, but for some reason, I mean, the people at home aren't going to get this, but we have this little thing on my iPad where I can see you now, and it's you and Lindsay, so I'm very confused on what's going on. So I'm just going to shut that right off.
That is super weird. No, it is Al.
Yeah.
Al, it is not Lindsay. All right, let's...
Al, what's up, buddy? How's it going?
What's up, brother? Good, man. Good to see you.
I can't wait till we're all together.
Well, I can't see you, but yeah, this is craziness. All right, let's get going.
All right, this is a crazy story, actually. Former Saturday Night Live star Jay Pharoah recounted a horrific experience being stopped by the LAPD in a case of mistaken identity, and it's on camera. So I want you to take a look at this.
4 officers got their guns blazing. They tell me to get on the ground, spread my arms out. They put me in cuffs. The officer took his knee, put it on my neck. It wasn't as long as George Floyd, but I know how that feels. I said, why are you doing this? Like, what's wrong? They said, you fit the description of a black man in this area with gray sweatpants on and a gray shirt.
Realizing their mistake, now the cops eventually let Jay go, but Jay said that was his first time experiencing racism firsthand in America. The LAPD told USA Today that it has provided Jay with a document to file a misconduct complaint. Al, as a black comedian, I also want to bring up, I just read that Eddie Murphy would have to have his white cast members go get him a cab after SNL at midnight because they wouldn't pick up a black man. What does that say about being black in America?
You know, leaving the Eddie Murphy thing aside, the cab issue has been going on forever in New York City. You think about Jay Pharoah, famous comic, had a near-death run-in with the police. And when somebody has their knee on your neck, that's near death. The fact that, because at that point it's just up to their discretion whether to relieve the pressure or not. You look at Dave Chappelle with his latest special, 846. He talked about how he was pulled over the night before the police officer that pulled him over would kill a black man in Walmart. I myself have been assaulted by the police. My buddy Hannibal Buress actually closes his upcoming Netflix special with a story about his run-in with the police officer. That police officer was later fired for misconduct. Wow. So these are happening all at one. Mine was in Ohio, Dave was in Ohio, Jay Pharoah, I believe, was in New York, Hannibal was in Miami. So it's clearly not just one department, it's all over the country. So what are we gonna do, y'all?
That's when I think, again, and Jeff, I know it's hard to say this, but we say defund the police. We really mean dismantle those power structures of oppression that are all over America. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I agree, and Al, I appreciate what you just said, man. I think we need to hear more stories like yours, like Jay's, like I've learned from the show, because I think people don't realize how often that happens, and they just think it's a number that they throw away. But when you hear it firsthand, Al, I really appreciate you telling everybody about that stuff. But as far as the police go toward this whole defunding thing, I think it's very confusing for a lot of America, even though it's not that confusing. I think we need to restructure. I think we need to change the vocabulary, maybe restructure the police department similar to what the Army is. Now, I'm sorry if I'm going to drone on here, but you have rankings in the Army, right? I know the police force does too, but when you start, you're just a cadet, right? You're at the bottom. Those people should be giving tickets on the street for the police department. As you work your way up to a Green Beret, to a Navy SEAL, those are the guys that should be putting hands on people when they need to. Those are the guys that should be handling the top-notch jobs. I think there's just some whatever it is, discourse, discomfort, people don't like each other because you have the same people handling murder investigations as you do writing a rolling stop sign ticket. So I think there needs to be some other structure going on in the police force here. And if you don't qualify for that next level, that's on you. You're not in shape for that. You don't have the mental capacity for that. You shouldn't be at that level.
Or
so
you have some,
sorry I droned on there for a little bit.
No. Or you have some questionable background. I have to say, San Francisco, Jeff, just did this. They are now turning over nonviolent offenses to more mental health counselors, which make so much more sense than having police. And just to end this piece, I just want to say, from Jay Farrow to Al, from Hannibal Buress, how many weren't filmed, right? Like, how many weren't filmed that we don't even know about is what I just want to say.
Mine wasn't filmed.
Yours wasn't filmed, but you're here to talk. Like, how many people do we not ever, you have a platform, you never get to even tell their story, is what I mean. Moving on to, speaking of George Floyd's daughter, Gigi, now owns a piece of Disney, thanks to Barbara Streisand. This is a little weird. Okay, the 6-year-old posed with a letter from the singer, who I love, obviously, on Instagram, as well as the official certificate from Disney. Now, it is not clear how many shares Gigi was gifted. Disney's stock price sits at about $115 a share. What do you think about this instead of cash, Jeff?
Why didn't you just get her some gift cards to the Gap? You know, it's like just give her cash.
Cash,
you
right?
know, stocks are hard to take. Listen, don't get me wrong. Disney's a great stock. I own some of it. I just bought some. But it's hard. You have to like pay taxes, and if you have earnings on that at the end of the year, it gets into a whole other thing. Just give her some cash.
Yeah.
Just give her straight cash and let her do what she wants.
Do you think Babs doesn't have cash? Al, is that the issue?
I think she has cash. I think she was trying to, you know, I'm assuming that she thinks in 12 years when this girl's an adult, she's a young woman, it'll be worth even more. But I think, like, I don't know. If there was a $500,000 sitting in an account somewhere just collecting interest, I think that would work well too. Yeah,
that's very, very true. Well said. Moving on to Beyonce. Beyonce herself is demanding justice for Breonna Taylor. As we have mentioned on the show, Breonna was shot and killed in her home by Louisville police officers back in March. They were reportedly executing a no-knock warrant that is now deemed, because of Breonna's law, unconstitutional and unjust, as it should be. In an open letter to Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, Beyonce is demanding that criminal charges be brought against the 3 officers involved in Breonna's death. She wants transparency in the investigation and for the officers to be prosecuted. Beyonce also asked the AG to investigate the police department's response to, quote, Breonna Taylor's murder, as well as all police practices that result in the repeated death of unarmed black people. Al, do you think Beyonce's voice will create change? Sometimes it takes a Kim Kardashian to freaking make prison reform.
Yes, look, I know that we think like, oh, just another celebrity talking. It's not.
Right.
Beyonce has power.
Yeah.
She has power. Millions and millions of people listen to her. She can affect people's jobs. She can affect people getting reelected. So this person better listen up to her, because this ain't just a petition. This is Beyonce and her Bayhive, and you don't want none of that. Trust me.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like Oprah. They call it the Oprah effect. If Oprah says she likes your business, the Oprah effect is just the amount. You're sold out instantly. That's, with Beyonce, that comes an enormous amount of power, and I'm glad she's speaking up. I'm really glad to see that. And just so you know, none of the officers so far have been charged with anything in the Breonna Taylor murder. Speaking of celebrities, Selena Gomez is giving her 180 million followers. Jeff, don't you have that many on Instagram? A little history lesson on school desegregation. The pop star handed over her account to civil rights activist Ruby Bridges. You might remember this picture. She was the first black child to integrate in an all-white school in New Orleans back in 1960. If you see those 3 white men, those are federal marshals escorting her in because of fear for her safety. She also inspired this famous Norman Rockwell painting of a black girl being escorted by U.S. Marshals to school, walking by a wall with the N-word written on it. Ruby shared footage on Selena's account of how white parents reacted to that day in 1960. Take a look.
They gather on schedule to harass the children still going to school with angry protests.
My God, she don't want them to go to school. They want them to go to all white school.
We are the white people. They are the and I mean, he said and I about it, might have said so that's what they are.
That has not ever been released footage, by the way. Well, in a video message to Selena's fans, Ruby explains the importance of showing this footage and in understanding its place in history. Take a look.
I think it will help you to understand why I think we, Black and brown sisters and brothers, need to stand united in this fight to save Black and brown lives. I want you to remember that it is all of our shared history. This is your legacy too.
We only have about 30 seconds, but I just wanted to ask if we have Jeff and Al. Do we still have Jeff and Al or no? Yeah. Jeff, would you, and I want to ask Al this, would you show your kids this picture, and what does it say to you, that picture? I love that photograph of Ruby Bridges standing her own, walking into that school.
Are you asking me, Tori?
Yeah, I want to ask both of you, but Jeff, go real quick. I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, listen, I know we're out of time. I just think it's a great thing what Selena Gomez is doing. I think we need to hear stories like this from people like this who don't have a platform to let everybody hear it. And to have her take over Selena Gomez's Instagram, now she could get her story up to hundreds of millions of people. So I think this is a great thing, because at this point, I don't want to hear from celebrities. I want to hear what's actually happening to the people. So I love this idea.
I do too. I also don't want to hear from celebrities. Al, you agree on this?
I absolutely do, and also as a former teacher, I'd like for this to be taught in school.
Yes.
I'd like for us to talk about the Tulsa Massacre, which I was not taught.
Yep.
I went all the way through graduate school. I never learned about that. Never learned about the internment camps for Asian Americans. Where is this in our curriculum? We can't remember if we haven't been taught.
Very good point. And also, for any historians about the Confederate statues, just know the Confederacy was only around for 5 years. That's less than Nirvana was a band. So I don't think we really need that many statues for that. Jeff, stick around. Coming up on DBL, the pandemic and protests make for very uncertain times. So how do we talk to our kids and grandkids about the world around them? Well, we have a maternity wellness expert weighing in. Plus, are companies too quick to capitalize on the Black Lives Matter movement? And is it all just good PR, or does the support go deeper than that? We want to know what your take is in DBL Take. And as we kick off another week of all new shows, a huge thank you to all the coworkers putting DBL together from home. Man, I miss y'all. We'll be right back. Close. DBL. Well, more companies are responding to the call for action led by the Black Lives Matter movement, but some feel their woke responses are more about selling new products and good press. So after several pushes in the past for Band-Aids to include a variety of darker flesh tones, the company has finally announced that day has come. Nike announced it will recognize Juneteenth as an official paid company holiday in light of the many protesters calling for racial justice. Nike also plans to hire more minorities. So DBL Nation, we want to know, is it okay for companies to capitalize off of the Black Lives Matter movement? I'm going to read your comments and then get Al and Jeff's take. Jeff, first comment is for you. Missy says, it's never too late to do the right thing. If the right thing means new business, it's proof you're on the right track.
I kind of agree here. I don't know if they're capitalizing rather than just catching up. It's insane to me that there aren't Band-Aids for different color skins. I did not know this.
Yeah.
This blew my mind. And Al, why don't you help me out, buddy? We could have been millionaires. We could have took care of this problem.
Al, that is now all on you for not coming up with that. By the way, Crayola Crayons is now coming up with skin tones for all races, and that is spurred on by an 8-year-old girl. So bravo to Crayola as well. Al, the next comment is from Darren. Says, I'm all for stepping up to do better, but it just does not sit well with me that now Band-Aid wants to cater to communities of color after years of ignoring why being inclusive is so important.
Well, you know, I understand Darren's concerns, and I agree with him on a fundamental level, but you have to understand we are in a capitalistic society, and we are capitalists, and people are incentivized to do things not only because of the right thing, but because they can make money off of it.
Yeah.
So as long as the right thing's being done, if somebody's profiting off of it, I'm fine with that. As long as there's going to be young black kids that can look in the Band-Aid section and see a skin tone that looks like theirs, I'm fine with that.
I 1,000,000,000% agree with you. One last one. Kiana from Facebook disagrees. I don't think offering more colors of Band-Aids is what we need to put on the wound of racism in America. I'd rather Johnson & Johnson make a sizable donation instead. Kiana, I know what you're saying, but I also think that fixing the wound of racism is not one cut. It's lots and lots of millions of microaggressions over and over and over again. And as Al said, if you can put on a nude Band-Aid, which they call it nude, and it's your color, I think that can make someone's self-esteem rise a little bit. Coming up on DBL, a maternity wellness expert shares some tips on talking with children about the unrest all around us and why they're never too young to get the message. If you have kids or grandkids, stay tuned for this one.
If you are new to med
Welcome back to DBL. Now more than ever, American households are having difficult conversations. Racial unrest and mass protests dominate headlines, and even for adults. I'm being honest, even for me, for everyone here, it can be difficult to process what's happening. But how are children doing? How are they feeling? And how do we talk to them about what's going on? Well, earlier, Erica spoke to maternity wellness expert Latham Thomas. She said it doesn't matter how old your kids are, the time to talk is now. Take a look.
Welcome maternity wellness expert, author, and mother. She is a queen with many crowns, Miss Latham Thomas. Welcome to DBL, Latham.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. And honestly, we really need a word from you these days because these are very unprecedented times. And at DBL, we often find ourselves having really difficult conversations live on the air. And even as adults, it's hard to process, but you don't really hear much about having that same conversation with kids. So why is it important to be honest with children?
I think the challenge is that people are really hesitant because they don't have the tools, they haven't had these conversations in their own lives, and because they think it's too young to get started.
Now, I do understand that this has to do with how mature and what age the children are. So let's break this down into young children and teens because there are different approaches depending on their age. And is there an age that is too young to talk to them about this? And what is the best way to have that conversation?
I think when we're talking about younger children, one of the first things you want to do is sort of observe where they are. What are they starting to talk about? What we'll find is when children are watching programs or when you're out and about, they might mention, oh, someone has a different skin color, or their eyes look like this, or their hair looks like this. I think these are really important entry points for these conversations about celebrating differences. As children grow and once they get through school, we start to see also these behaviors come out when they experience differences in how they're treated by school teachers, administrators, right? And there's a conversation that happens in the home. Again, that's a great opportunity to talk about how a lot of people have not been exposed to these conversations around anti-racism. So it depends, I think, number one, you know, if you're a parent of Black or brown children, then this is something that you probably have a conversation about earlier just because of society.
A lot of our viewers have teenagers. What if they want to get involved in the movement? What if they come to you and say, I want to be a part of the revolution?
I think it's about really figuring out what works for your family and where your risk friendliness is, you know? So for me, I want to make sure I know where my son is at all times. So I make sure that we have the Find Friends app so I can track him if I don't hear from him for a while. I think it's about really thinking clearly and discussing a plan of action as a family. And also coming up with, you know, what your expectations are as a parent in terms of safety and boundaries for your children and how they will show up.
Right, and I mean, here's the thing, there's no real playbook to what we're experiencing right now. And I think that so many people, especially parents, are trying to figure out a way to navigate how to have the conversation with their kids. Latham, I thank you so much for sharing all of this helpful advice. And if viewers want to hear more from you, you have a new book called Own Your Glow, A Soulful Guide to Luminous Living and Owning Your Glow. It's available June 16th. Again, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Promotional consideration is brought to you by...
Hello,
The pandemic began, you're not alone. We're chatting about some of the most common dreams and their meanings in today's Rise and Thrive, sponsored by SoClean. How about the one where you're being chased? Yeah? Well, it likely means you're overwhelmed, stressed out, or something you're avoiding is catching up with you. All right, if you dream about being underwater, it might mean your emotions are getting to be too much, you're in over your head, and it's time to take something off your plate. Then there's that nightmare, we all know it, where your teeth fall out. It's very common, and it stems often from a feeling of being powerless. When it comes to your sleep, for ways to rest easy, go to SoClean.com or call 1-800-227-5681. Any recurring dreams, Al? I always am packing in my dreams. For about 8 hours, I just pack a suitcase.
Really? Even your dreams are boring. No, you know, you're literally doing, what are you doing, your taxes and your nightmares?
Oh, man. Oh, that is real funny. Yeah, and it's just like me being like, do I need this? I don't know. For 8 hours. That's all I have to say. That's all we have to say. That's all we have time for, so I'm glad we ended on that note. DBL is new every day. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow. Bye, guys.